So if we're going to be asked to decompose a function, okay, we're generally going to be given something that looks like it came from a composition, okay, by putting one function into another. So what they're asking for here is if I want to call g of x, okay, keeping in mind being it's in the inside of f, if you will, we call this the inside function. Okay, it looks like, and I usually think about the order of operations when I try to do this. Okay, whatever I would do first if I were to plug an x in here, okay, I would square it and then add 5. I would do that first, and then last I would take the what? I would take the square root. So that kind of guides you to what is the inside and what's the outside function in this case. So I would write g of x as x squared plus 5, and then I'd write f of x as the square root of x. Okay? Because ultimately, if I took that stuff and plugged it in here, wouldn't I be back to what I just started with? Okay. All right. Questions? All right. One other one that we'll do here, let's call it, we'll call this j of x. Okay. We'll call this sine squared of x. Okay. Just to make sure we're clear on this notation, and again, we'll spend more time with trig functions later, and we'll do this plenty more. One thing I want you to note, though, is if you see this situation where it says sine squared of x, and that's how that's read, sine squared of x, that really means the sine of x all squared. Okay. So again, thinking of order of operations here, okay, I would take the sine of whatever I put in for x, and then after that I would square it. So that means in this case my g function, the inside function, would be the first thing that happens, which is sine x. And then the f function would be I'd take that sine x and I would square it. So if I were to decompose that one, I'd have sine x plugged into x squared, and that would get me back to this, which ultimately is sine squared x. Okay. All right, one last one I want to talk about with decomposing. I'm going to call it k of x. If I have 1 over x cubed plus 3, let's say, and that's my given function. Okay. If I want to write that as a decomposition, okay, I would write my g of x function as what I would do first in the order of operations, which would be the x cubed plus 3 part. Okay. And then ultimately, what did I compose that with? Okay. I plugged it in down below here, right? So that f function would have had to been 1 over what? That would have had to just been 1 over x, wouldn't it? Because if I take that right there and I replace the x, then I would be back to what I started with the k function, wouldn't I? Okay. So those are a few examples of doing a decomposition.